I want to share something right here at a very unconventional time that I believe is extremely appropriate for this prayer time. These tears are not going to turn off, so you'll just have to bear with me. It's a fountain that's opened up in my spirit it's not going to turn off. But I believe today we need to cry out for our nation, as we have many times. But I want to share something from the Lord for those that are watching, and I'm sure this can be played again later if it's needed, that I have sat on since November. But I had a dream, and I told part of it, and I'm going to tell it again today because I believe it is from the Lord. And I believe it is instruction, preparation for our nation. And I believe the words I have heard today confirm that. And so I want to share it. I had a dream, and it was actually very interesting. It was the night of the election while I was sleeping. And I've been asking the Lord, what do you want for our nation? Lord, you don't do anything without revealing your heart first. And I want to be in the middle of what you're doing. I want to be trustworthy with your heart. I want you to speak to me. And he did that night in a dream. And I had a dream that I was in a field. And the reason why I was in a field is because the church wasn't in a building. Kevin and I were leading the church outside in an open wheat field, which I know represents harvest, but I knew it was an unconventional way to have church. And we were teaching, and the only people I could see were the faces that are in front of me now. It was sons and daughters. It was young people. And we were teaching the kingdom. And Kevin was talking. This sounds so silly, but I understand it now. He was talking about the cow in America and the stomachs of the cow, and how we needed to beware of the stomachs of the cow. And I thought, how strange is that, until I did some research on what a cow represents and how much it represents idolatry. But more importantly, it is significant in Babylonian culture. And I knew the Lord was exposing idolatry in our nation. And he was exposing the corruption of our culture that is consuming our sons and daughters. A cow has several stomachs, and there are several stomachs at play, and we were trying to warn the sons and daughters about the stomachs of this cow. And when we were done teaching, we turned to leave, and it was what Pastor Kevin preached on Sunday. When we left the field, I realized the students were going to follow us, and I needed to choose a path. And one path went to the left, and one path went to the right. But we did not take either path. I was frozen in the middle. And if you didn't watch Sunday's sermon, you'll understand more if you see that. Because taking the left or the right was not the right direction. I was frozen in the middle. And as I stood there, I looked down and caught in whatever brush was growing in this field were chunks of lamb's wool. White, pure, fluffy lamb's wool. And it was in chunks, clean cuts, I should say. I knew that a lamb had not caught its hair on the bushes. It had been shorn with scissors. And I picked up the chunks of lamb's wool and I said, Kevin, do you know what this is? This is lamb's wool. And I knew what it meant in the dream, that there would be a shearing of the sheep. And the only place in Scripture you can find such a reference for that is the suffering and the crucifixion of Christ. And when I picked up the lamb's wool and I held it in my hands, all I could say to myself in the dream was, take comfort, for Jesus has been down this path before. I knew that the presence of his wool, it was his wool, meant he had been there. And I woke up. Now, you may be wondering, why does that dream bring you to tears? Because I believe it is pointing to a suffering that the church in America will endure. And that it is not something to be dreaded or feared. It's not judgment or punishment. It's a purifying of the bride. And we are to take part in the fellowship of his sufferings. And I knew what the Lord was telling me was to take heart. He had walked this path before. And when I woke up, all of the scriptures I had quoted my whole life about no servant is greater than their master. If they hated me, they'll hate you. And that we would suffer for the cause of Christ. I realized what the Lord was showing me for America was not a path that I had predicted, but a path that would come. I hesitated to share it. I've sat on it for 2 months because nobody wants to hear a message on suffering. But I'm here to tell you, it is in the suffering and the persecution that the greatest glory of the Lord is revealed. And Paul learned the secret of suffering so much that he said he counted it all joy when he suffered for the kingdom. So I released this dream because I know it is from the Lord, not to produce fear or drama, not to cause you to go into your room and hide. I weep tears because I believe it is our destiny. I believe it is the key to revival, and I don't know if our hearts are ready for it. I don't cry for the suffering. Do not mistake these tears. I cry because I want our sons and daughters to be ready, and I want the church in America to stand strong and come out like gold refined in fire. And so today, I just believe there's a purifying happening in our hearts, and I'm going to pray some bold prayers that I want you to pray with me. Because it is not the Lord's will that any man should perish. It is not my heart or prayer that any would go astray in a season of suffering or persecution. And it is certainly not the will of the Father to see the sheep scattered or fearful. But I believe it is time for the bride of Christ to roar like the lion of the tribe of Judah, knowing that we are not alone. And let me tell you something. It is about time. There is a remnant who loves not their own lives, even unto death. Those are the ones that Jesus said the world is not worthy of. And I want to be counted worthy. And I think in America we have been contaminated with the cow, with our idolatry and our comfort, with our way of living and what we have created the church to be. But today we learned that there's a global church, and they are not all operating the way we do here, but the glory of God is constant and growing.